The laughter stopped only for 1 second when the old lawyer whispered, "If this marriage goes through today, every life in this room will change forever." No one heard him except the young woman standing alone near the doors. She lowered her eyes and held the thin folder in her hands a little tighter. She already knew what the lawyer meant. The people laughing at her had no idea they were laughing at the only person who could decide the future of their family. But she said nothing. Not yet. If you have ever been judged before anyone knew your story, stay with this one until the end, because sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the strongest move a person can make. The city lights covered the tall glass buildings like stars trapped on Earth. Expensive cars lined up outside one of the most famous hotels in the city. Inside, crystal lights hung from the ceiling. Soft music floated through the ballroom, while waiters carried silver trays filled with sparkling drinks. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked rich. Everything looked happy. Only one person did not belong. Lena stood near the entrance wearing a simple cream dress. It was beautiful, but beside the glittering diamonds around her, it looked almost invisible. She had no famous family, no rich parents, no designer jewelry, only quiet eyes and calm hands. The whispers started the moment she walked in. "So that's her. I thought she'd look better. Poor thing, probably borrowed that dress. She's marrying him because she wants money." Lena heard every word. She smiled anyway. Across the room stood the man everyone had come to see. His name was Ryan. Tall, calm, impossible to read. The newspapers called him one of the youngest business leaders in the country. The world believed he had everything: money, power, respect. But nobody knew the truth behind today's wedding. Not even most of his own family. Ryan looked across the room until his eyes found Lena. He gave one small nod. She answered with the same tiny movement. No smiles, no romance, only understanding. Because this was never supposed to be a love story. 1 year earlier, Lena had been working 2 jobs while raising 3 little children alone. Every morning began before sunrise. She packed 3 tiny lunchboxes, tied 3 pairs of little shoes, braided little hair, wiped little tears, then rushed to work before the city fully woke. Life was hard. Bills never stopped coming. Her apartment was small. The roof leaked every time it rained. Some nights she skipped dinner so the children could have more food. Yet they never saw her cry. She always smiled, always sang bedtime songs, always told them tomorrow would be better. The triplets believed every word. To them, their mother could fix anything. One rainy evening, everything changed. Lena was leaving the hospital after visiting one of the children when a black car stopped beside her. The window slowly rolled down. Inside sat Ryan. He looked exhausted, like someone carrying a mountain no one else could see. "I need to speak with you," he said. She refused. "I don't know you. You knew my mother." That made her stop. Ryan's late mother had once helped Lena during the hardest year of her life. Without asking for anything back, without telling anyone, just kindness, Ryan continued. "My mother left me a letter." Lena stayed silent. "In that letter, she asked me to find you." She frowned. "Why?" Ryan looked away for a moment. "Because she trusted you more than anyone." Those words made no sense, but they would soon change everything. They met the next day inside a quiet office. No cameras, no reporters. Only Ryan, his lawyer, and Lena. The lawyer placed a document on the table. "It is a marriage contract." Lena almost laughed. "You brought me here for this?" Ryan nodded once. "I need a wife." "I think you're asking the wrong person. I need someone I can trust." She pushed the papers back. "No?" Ryan did not argue. Instead, he quietly explained. His grandfather was dying. The old man wanted one thing before changing his will. Ryan had to marry. Not because of love, because of tradition. If he refused, control of the family empire would pass to other relatives. People who cared only about money. People already fighting like wolves over a future fortune. I don't care about your company, Lena answered. I know. Then why me? Ryan looked directly into her eyes. My mother believed you would never lie. Silence filled the room. Then the lawyer added something unexpected. If you agree, every expense for your children will be covered. Lena immediately stood up. I don't sell my family. Ryan answered calmly. I'm not asking you to. He slid another paper toward her. This part can be removed. She looked down. The paper listed schools, medical care, a home, everything her children needed. Without asking her to give them away, without taking them from her. Only support. She stared at Ryan. What do you get? A name beside mine. And after 1 year? We go our separate ways. No promises? No. No pretending we're in love? No. No sharing a room? No. She studied his face. He looked serious. Almost sad. Like a man who had stopped expecting happiness long ago. 3 days later, she signed. Not because she wanted wealth, because she wanted peace for her children. She believed 1 year of pretending could give them a lifetime of safety. She had no idea the contract contained something she had never been allowed to read. Back in the ballroom, the whispers grew louder. Ryan's aunt raised her glass. I heard the bride came from a tiny apartment. Another woman laughed. Maybe she thinks wearing white makes her one of us. More laughter followed. Lena quietly drank water. One cousin walked directly toward her. His expensive watch sparkled under the lights. So, he smirked, how much are they paying you? Lena blinked. I don't understand. The contract. He leaned closer. You married for money. At least be honest. I married for my reasons. Oh, that's a fancy way of saying you're poor. Several people nearby laughed. Ryan heard everything. He did nothing. Not because he agreed. Because Lena had already asked him not to interfere. Let them speak, she had said earlier. They'll get tired. She was wrong. They never got tired. Dinner began. Every table buzzed with gossip. Someone joked that the marriage should last exactly 12 months. Another guessed she would disappear with millions before the year ended. Someone else laughed that she probably had no family tree because it was too small to draw. Each joke landed harder than the last. Still, Lena smiled politely. She thanked the waiters. She helped an elderly guest pick up a dropped napkin. She even comforted a little girl who had spilled juice on her dress. The rich guests noticed. They didn't understand her. How could someone insulted all night still choose kindness? Ryan noticed too. For the first time in years, something almost looked like respect in his eyes. Across the room, the old lawyer quietly opened the same contract one last time. His hands trembled. Tomorrow, when it was signed before witnesses, the final sealed page would become legally active. A page no one in the family had ever asked to read. A page that carried one sentence powerful enough to destroy everything they believed belonged to them. And outside the hotel, 3 small children stepped out of a taxi, holding hands, completely unaware that by sunrise, the world would know who they really were. Morning arrived with bright sunlight shining across the city, but inside the grand wedding hall, the air felt heavy. Everyone smiled for the cameras. No one smiled with their hearts. Rows of white flowers filled the room. Crystal lights sparkled above the guests. Soft music played as reporters gathered outside, hoping to catch a photo of the city's biggest wedding. The guests whispered before the ceremony even began. I give this marriage 6 months. I give it 3. I wonder how much she charged. The laughter spread from one table to another. Lena heard every word. She fixed the sleeve of her simple white dress and took one slow breath. She had promised herself something. No matter what happened today, she would not let anger control her. Ryan stood at the front beside the minister. His face showed almost no emotion, but inside, he was growing tired of his own family. Every joke felt like another stone thrown at someone who had never fought back. His uncle walked beside him with a wide smile. You still have time, the older man whispered. Ryan looked at him. Time for what? To marry someone from a real family. Ryan answered without raising his voice. I already chose. His uncle laughed. No, your mother chose. Ryan turned away. The ceremony began. The guests stood. Every eye followed Lena as she walked slowly down the aisle. Instead of lowering her head in shame, she walked with quiet confidence. Each step was calm. Each step carried years of pain that no one in the room could see. The people watching thought they were looking at a poor woman who had won the lottery. They were completely wrong. At the front, Ryan offered his hand. She accepted. The minister smiled warmly. We are gathered today to witness this union. The room became quiet. Even the loudest relatives waited. Not because they respected the wedding, because they expected entertainment. The vows were short, simple. Neither of them spoke dramatic promises. Neither pretended they had known each other forever. They simply agreed to honor the terms they had accepted. That alone made several guests laugh. Listen to them. They sound like they're signing a business deal. It isn't even a real marriage. One cousin laughed so loudly that people at nearby tables joined him. The minister ignored them. He placed the contract on a polished wooden table. This agreement will now be signed before witnesses. The lawyer stepped forward carrying the thick folder. His hands looked steady. Only his eyes showed concern. Lena noticed. She remembered the strange look he had worn the night before. It was almost like he wanted to warn someone. Ryan signed first. His name flowed across the paper in smooth black ink. The cameras flashed. Applause filled the room. Then the pen was passed to Lena. She looked at the contract for 1 second. Not because she doubted her choice, because she suddenly remembered Ryan asking one unusual question months earlier. If people laugh at you, can you stay silent? She had answered yes. Now she understood why he had asked. She signed. The room exploded with applause. Some guests clapped sincerely. Others clapped because they believed the joke had reached its funniest moment. Ryan's aunt stood and raised her glass. A wonderful day. Everyone looked toward her. Today our family has proved even anyone can become rich if they marry the right man. Laughter rolled across the ballroom. Another relative shouted, "We should frame the contract. It's the most expensive job application ever signed." More laughter. A young woman added, "I hope she remembers us after she spends Ryan's money." Even the photographers smiled awkwardly. Lena slowly placed the pen on the table. She looked at no one. Her silence somehow made the joke sound even uglier. Ryan finally spoke. "That's enough." His voice was calm, not loud, but the room became quiet. His uncle folded his arms. "Why? We're only having fun." Ryan looked directly at him. "No, you're showing everyone who you really are." The silence lasted only a few seconds. Then the uncle laughed again. "Oh, don't be so serious. None of this matters anyway." He pointed toward the contract. "In 1 year, this little agreement ends." Several relatives nodded confidently. One woman smiled. "The money stays in the family." The old lawyer closed the folder very slowly. "No." The word barely left his mouth, but everyone heard it. The room froze. Ryan's grandfather, sitting quietly near the front, lifted his head. "What did you say?" The lawyer stepped forward. "There is one final section that must now be read before the witnesses." Confused voices filled the room. "What section?" "We already know the contract. There are no surprises." The lawyer opened the last sealed page. Its paper was thicker than the others. A red seal covered the bottom. Ryan watched carefully. Even he had never seen this page. His grandfather had ordered it sealed until after both signatures. The lawyer cleared his throat. "This clause becomes legally active only after today's marriage is completed." Every guest leaned forward. Some smiled. Others looked bored. None of them were prepared. The lawyer began reading. "By the instruction of Mr. Arthur Hale," the old billionaire nodded silently, "all inheritance connected to the Hale family trust shall pass directly to the lawful biological children of Ryan Hale." People exchanged confused looks. The lawyer continued, If such children exist before or during the marriage, they alone shall inherit controlling ownership of the family estate, businesses, investments, and voting rights. Someone laughed. Well, that's easy. Another added, Ryan doesn't have children. Several people smiled again. The lawyer did not stop reading. No brother, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle, or extended relative shall receive ownership should biological heirs be confirmed. The laughter became weaker. One cousin frowned. What does he mean? Confirmed. Ryan slowly turned toward the lawyer. His heartbeat grew faster. He had never heard these words before. His grandfather remained perfectly calm. The lawyer reached the final paragraph. Verification shall be completed using legal documentation and certified DNA evidence presented before the witnesses. The ballroom became completely silent. One woman whispered, DNA? Ryan stared at the lawyer. What are you talking about? The lawyer carefully closed the folder. I was instructed not to explain until this exact moment. His voice shook slightly. Everything has been prepared. Ryan looked at his grandfather. The old man simply nodded toward the large entrance doors. Every eye in the ballroom turned. The doors remained closed. For several long seconds, nothing happened. The silence became painful. Someone nervously laughed. This is ridiculous. Another guest forced a smile. There are no children. Ryan himself looked confused. Lena, she quietly met his eyes. There was no fear in her face, only peace. For the first time since they met, she whispered something unexpected. It's time. Ryan frowned. What do you mean? She smiled softly. The waiting is over. Before he could ask another question, the massive ballroom doors slowly began to open. Every head turned, every camera lifted, every heartbeat seemed to stop. Small footsteps echoed across the marble floor. One, then another, then another. 3 little children walked into the hall hand in hand, dressed neatly, their eyes wide as they searched the room. And the moment Ryan saw their faces, the color disappeared from his own. Ryan could not breathe. The room disappeared around him. The music, the flowers, the cameras, the laughing relatives, none of it mattered anymore. His eyes stayed locked on the 3 little children walking slowly across the polished floor. A little boy walked in the middle. 2 little girls held his hands. All 3 had the same dark eyes, the same calm expression, the same small smile. But it was something else that made the room freeze. They looked exactly like Ryan. The little boy tilted his head the same way Ryan always did when he was thinking. One girl had his eyes. The other had the same smile his late mother used to have. The guests looked from the children to Ryan, then back again. No one laughed now. One woman whispered, They look just like him. Another guest shook his head. No, this can't be real. Ryan stared at Lena. His voice barely came out. Who are they? Lena looked at the children with gentle eyes. They're not strangers. The little boy suddenly smiled. Mom? The 3 children ran toward Lena. She knelt and opened her arms. They hugged her tightly. The room stayed silent, except for the happy voices of the children. We found you. We were waiting outside. I was scared. Lena kissed each of their heads. You were very brave. Ryan still stood frozen. His heart pounded so loudly he could hardly hear anything else. The old lawyer stepped forward, carrying another folder. It was thicker than the first one. This, he said carefully, is the second instruction left by Mrs. Evelyn Hale. Ryan looked at him. My mother? The lawyer nodded. She ordered that these documents remain sealed until today. He handed the folder to Ryan. Inside were hospital records, birth certificates, medical reports, DNA results. Everything had official seals. Everything had signatures. Everything had dates. Ryan's hands shook as he turned each page. His own DNA matched all 3 children, 99.99%. There was no mistake, no doubt, no argument. His knees almost gave way. They're mine? Lena quietly answered. Yes. The room exploded. What? Impossible. She's lying. This is a trick. Ryan's uncle rushed toward the lawyer. Those papers are fake. The lawyer calmly raised another document. The court verified every record 2 weeks ago. His aunt grabbed her chair to keep from falling. No! One cousin snatched a report from the table. His face turned white as he read it. Every page confirmed the same truth. Ryan was the father. The triplets were his lawful biological children. The family fortune had already changed hands the moment the marriage contract became active. Ryan slowly looked at Lena. Why didn't you tell me? Tears filled her eyes. I tried. The room became quiet again. She continued softly. The night I found out I was carrying the babies, I came looking for you. Ryan searched his memory. I never saw you. You never had the chance. She looked toward his uncle. He stopped me. Every face turned toward the older man. His confident smile disappeared. Lena spoke one painful memory after another. He told me you had left the country. He said you never wanted children. He offered me money to disappear. Ryan stared at his uncle. The older man took one step backward. She's lying. Lena reached into her small handbag. I knew no one would believe me. She handed the lawyer an old envelope. Inside was a letter, still sealed. The lawyer carefully opened it. I recognize this. Ryan frowned. What is it? The original letter your mother wrote before she passed away. The lawyer unfolded the paper. He began reading. Ryan, his voice became emotional. If you are hearing this, I may already be gone. Ryan lowered his head. I know the woman named Lena carries your children. The room gasped. I met her myself. I have already confirmed everything. If anyone tries to separate your family, protect them. They are your greatest treasure. Tears rolled down Ryan's face. The lawyer kept reading. I no longer trust everyone carrying our family name. If my fears become true, I leave instructions that my grandchildren alone shall inherit everything. The letter ended with one final sentence. Money builds houses. Family builds home. Silence. Deep, painful silence. Ryan slowly turned toward his uncle. You knew. The uncle swallowed hard. I was protecting the company. No. Ryan's voice grew stronger. You were protecting yourself. Another cousin suddenly shouted, We're still family. Ryan looked at him. Were you acting like family yesterday? No one answered. His aunt hurried toward Lena. Her face had completely changed. My dear, Lena calmly stepped back. The woman forced a smile. We misunderstood you. Another relative joined in. We can start over. We'll help with the children. We're one family now. Lena looked around the room. Yesterday, these same people laughed at her dress, mocked her apartment, called her a gold digger. Today they smiled because the money had moved. Nothing else had changed. Only the direction of the wealth. She quietly asked, If there were no children, would you still be smiling? No one spoke. One man lowered his eyes. Another looked away. The answer was written across every face. Ryan walked toward the triplets. The little boy looked up carefully. Are you my daddy? Ryan's lips trembled. He slowly knelt until they were face to face. Yes. The little boy smiled so brightly that several guests began crying. The two girls hugged Ryan before he could even move. He wrapped his arms around all three children. Years he could never get back. Birthdays he had missed. First words, first steps, first days of school. All stolen by greed. He looked at Lena. I'm sorry. She nodded gently. I know. You carried this alone. I wasn't alone. She smiled at the children. I had them. Ryan wiped his eyes. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. She believed him. Not because he was rich, because she could see the truth in his face. The old billionaire slowly stood. Everyone became quiet. His voice was weak but clear. I built this business from nothing. He looked around the room. I thought money would keep this family together. He smiled sadly. It almost destroyed us. He walked toward the triplets. One little girl offered him her tiny hand. He held it carefully. This, he looked at every relative, is my real legacy. The relatives stood speechless. Years of planning, years of waiting for the fortune. Gone in a single morning. One cousin angrily stormed out. Another slammed a chair. The uncle simply stood frozen. He had lost everything he had spent years trying to steal. Security officers quietly entered the ballroom. Ryan looked at the head of security. "Escort my uncle from the building." The older man shouted. "You can't do this." Ryan answered calmly. "You already did it to yourself." The officers led him away. No one tried to help him. No one defended him. Outside, reporters crowded around the hotel entrance. Questions flew through the air. "Mr. Hale, is it true?" "Who are the children?" Ryan looked at Lena. She nodded once. He smiled. Not the cold business smile people knew. A real one. Together, they walked outside with the triplets between them. Flashing cameras lit up the street, but for the first time in years, Ryan ignored every headline. His attention stayed on the three little hands holding his. Behind them, the relatives watched from the ballroom windows. They had laughed at a contract marriage. They believed a quiet woman had entered their family looking for money. Instead, she had walked in, carrying the future of the Hale family. Not with threats, not with revenge, not with loud words, but with patience, with truth, and with three children who had unknowingly carried the key to an entire empire. As the family disappeared into the waiting car, Lena looked back one last time. The ballroom was still full. The diamonds still sparkled. The flowers were still beautiful. The money was still there. But the pride that once filled those walls had vanished. She smiled quietly. Sometimes the loudest people lose because they never stop talking. Sometimes the strongest people win because they know exactly when to stay silent. And sometimes the greatest inheritance is not a billion-dollar fortune. It is finally giving your children the family, the love, and the future they always deserved. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Never laugh at someone because of where they start. You never know what truth they are carrying in silence. Kindness costs nothing, but pride can cost everything. Before you go, tell us honestly, what do you think hurt the most? The family's cruel laughter, Ryan losing years with his children, or the moment the truth changed everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one of them. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story of betrayal, justice, and unforgettable twists. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.